Welcome to Thumb Wars, the show on Blistered Thumbs where we start the debate and you continue it. I'm Austin Yorsky, and I'm here today with Johnny.
Johnny Maloney.
Hello, Johnny.
That's me. Hey, Austin. This is weird. We're together again, but this isn't the format that I'm used to speaking you to. See? I'm all muddled up right now.
We've hijacked the show from Sean. He'll probably be back next week, but this week we have stuff we want to talk about.
And don't worry, everybody. We are going to do our best to maintain a professional atmosphere and make absolutely no untoward jokes about anything that you would be ashamed of listening to in front of your fiancé. I know you're waiting for the sting right now, but I'm actually dead serious. Penis. Sorry, I couldn't resist.
Well, we made it, 30 seconds without getting BT Podcast on the show?
If we're lucky, fingers crossed.
All right, so as you probably heard, Phil Fish finally concluded the long, inevitable derailing of his career today on Twitter, canceling Fez 2 and, for now at least, quitting the games industry. Is anyone surprised, Johnny?
I think people might be surprised that he left, maybe not as dramatically as he did, but yeah, considering that he's how to put this, considering that he moves in and out of Twitter and Facebook, and he's deleted profiles and then restarted profiles and things like that. I think that people may have been expecting for him to pull another drama move, if you want to call it that, but quitting the games industry altogether, I think, is a little surprising.
For those who haven't been following it, Phil Fish is, I believe, the only employee of Polytron. Does he have anybody else working for him currently?
There's probably some other people that work for Polytron. I imagine he has maybe financial and marketing people, but I think you're right in that he's the only person there that works in any kind of design capacity.
Yes, and he's of course the person behind Fez. He had
the critically acclaimed Fez.
Indeed. He had a partner, and if you've seen Indie Game the movie, you know that didn't turn out well. And since that, really, everything has been one controversy after another with the poor guy. Whether he was slagging off Japanese games, whether he's fighting with journalists on Twitter, just generally making...
Or even enduring personal attacks about his day-to-day private life.
Yes, that's kind of where we're going with this. He's been in the spotlight a lot of times for his own behavior, but it appears that the catalyst for this recent thing was him being fed up with the gaming community at large. Just generally, he characterized it as a long, bloody war on his person.
And to be fair to that statement, there are many people who have gone after Phil Fish because, I feel that when you live in the public sphere, and I guess to some extent being a video game developer is living in the public sphere, your behavior is subject to scrutiny. However, I don't really feel that your behavior in your own private life is something that should be subject to scrutiny. And Mr. Fish had undergone personal attacks, people accusing him of doing things like threatening his ex, physically threatening his ex to do harm, which is a spurious lie. He was publicly not very nice. I believe at one point in time he said, and I quote, "fuck you." But to go after somebody personally for professional problems is dubious.
Yeah, I think there's plenty of room to make the argument that Phil Fish is at least partly responsible for at least the larger perception of him as a person. He has made no attempt to hide how he feels about a number of controversial subjects.
And even uncontroversial subjects.
Just general, everyday stuff.
Yep.
He has strong opinions on.
Mm-hmm. And he's not shy about expressing them in the brashest way possible.
Yep. Right now, if you go to his Twitter account, you'll find that it is locked, so you can't look up any of the things exactly and quote them. But I followed him until the recent meltdown, and he basically had a weekly crusade. Every time something came to his attention that he wasn't particularly fond of. Recently, I don't know if you guys know, but Polygon, the video game website, ran an interview with
Kevin Dent.
Indeed, Kevin Dent. And that was a fiasco and a half. but just the latest, really. Just a long line of things. And finally, I guess he had enough.
Do you want to elaborate on why controversially Polygon running a story on Kevin Dent was
why that got under his craw?
Well, do you want to elaborate? Shall we?
I mean, you just quick and dirty. Kevin Dent is more or less a professional troll.
Yep.
He just goes around the industry insulting people. And
I think it's also been relatively objectively proven that he's a bit of a misogynistic asshole.
He doesn't seem like someone I would want to be friends with, indeed. And Polygon talked to him as some kind of a spokesperson for indie developers, which Fish did not believe he represented, and he resented the very idea that they would talk to him.
Well, this was part of Fish's problem, is that, I mean, you're perfectly able. You can be a misogynistic asshole as much as you want in any industry whatsoever. But the moment that you get put into a position of relative power, which Kevin Dent is, as I believe he's a pretty high-ranking voice in the IGDA, the Independent Games Developers Association, and so therefore to accept Mr. Dent's words about indie game development as representative of all indie game developers was something that Mr. Fish had a bit of a problem with.
Yeah, and there's a kernel of, understandable truth to almost all of Fish's statements. Kevin Dent isn't someone I would want speaking for me, no more than I would. For example, one of the things that Fish is always on about is the state of games journalism. He feels that games journalists are largely PR for major publishers and that they don't dig deep for the story and that they don't hold people responsible, that they kind of just churn out press releases. And I can definitely see kind of a straight, there's a vein of truth there to follow, but the way he would portray it is very much to get angry and start throwing around like insults and stuff, and it just endeared him to no one.
Yeah, I mean, just earlier today, before Mr. Fish decided to cancel development of Fez 2 and go completely private, I believe he encouraged someone to go fucking kill themselves. So that kind of behavior, not really high-roading it, so to speak. That's kind of like getting down in the muck and wrestling with the people that you have problems with. But the question needs to be asked whether or not mouthing off a little bit about people really does deserve death threats, essentially, is I guess what we're getting at here.
I mean, we only have access to so much of the stuff aimed at Fish, things that people have made public. Obviously, a lot of that's going to be private that we can't really verify. But it appears that he's basically, since before even the release of Fez, has been enduring constant daily harassment. And there's only so much a person can take, and we can look around the industry. We have plenty of support for the idea that pretty much every developer is constantly under siege, constantly threatened, constantly harassed. How would any of us react to that, really?
For my own self, I can't even begin to imagine it. For somebody to come after you for making a piece of entertainment, presumably doing something you love as well. I mean, I'm making a sweeping generalization here that most of the people who get into making video games because they love video games. So, you get a job that you love, you start doing what you love, and yeah, maybe it's hard, and maybe it's tough, and maybe you're not that soft around the edges as a person naturally, and you have a tendency to say a couple of things that people disagree with, but to, wake up one day and just have somebody who has no idea who you are or what it is that you do, but, he read one tweet that you made about what you think about games that are made from northern Ukraine and decides that the reasonable reaction to this is, I'm going to threaten the lives of your family. That there's a disconnect there, and it blows my mind.
I mean, just if you read through the announcement on Polytron's official site, Fish posted, "I am done. This is as much as I can stomach." He says, "You win," basically to the people who have been bothering him. And under there, here are the comments, right? There's some people who are upset, but a lot of the stuff is, "Get lost, you waste of talent. You brought this upon yourself. Don't try to act like a victim here. You don't deserve your money or fame or attention." People basically just saying that they're glad he's gone and they hated him anyway. So Can you imagine if this is the things people are saying in public, what they must have been sending him in private?
It's a frightening state of affairs, honestly. Because really what we're talking about opt-in entertainment and opt-in behavior here. Like just because Phil Fish makes a game doesn't mean A, you need to buy it. B, even if you decide to buy it, doesn't mean you need to like it. And C, even if you don't like it, you don't need to go to his personal Twitter and or email address and tell him that you didn't like it. D, you definitely do not need to tell him that he deserves to die.
Yeah. And it sounds easy to kind of imagine that we are exaggerating or something, but as I was telling you earlier, Jasper Byrne, developer of Lone Survivor, just recently tweeted out that he got a 6-page hate email where someone threatened his daughter, more or less, for porting his game to the Vita. Like, can you imagine living in a world where someone would literally threaten your family for such a tiny reason and then multiply that by everything Phil Fish has ever done?
It defies reason. It defies like any proportional reaction of any basic humanity. I mean, you can not like a person, and that's fine. That just means that you can stay away from them. You can like avoid them at work if they work with you. You can not talk to them if they're one of your roommates. You can move out if he's a really, really bad roommate. If it's somebody a little more distant from you, you can change the channel when his television show is on. You can decide not to pay him money and say to people, I really don't respect Blur's opinion on something, so I'm not actually going to give him any money. It might be a great game. It might be a good movie, because a lot of people are doing this. I know that a lot of people are going to be boycotting the Orson Scott Card movie Ender's Game because they feel very touchy about Card's personal politics, and that's fine. You don't have to do that. You also don't have to threaten the man.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to see Ender's Game, but I didn't write him hate mail. Like, I have things to do in my life that don't revolve around other people's opinions, so it seems like more effort than it's worth to even get upset.
I can't understand the progression. I can't understand the progression. Like, I mean, I bought Fez some time ago. I haven't had a chance to play it yet, and I'm prepared for the possibility that I might not like the game. I'm prepared for the possibility that I might really, really love the game. What I'm not prepared for is to be so possessed by what happens to me when I play this game that I feel the need to make sure that everybody in the world knows my displeasure to such extremes that they have to die.
I mean, here's another example. I just bringing up. This came out over the week. There was a recent patch to Call of Duty Black Ops 2 where they changed the reload time for one of the weapons from 1 second to 1.1 seconds, and they were inundated with threats of physical violence. 0.1 seconds on a reload time for a fake weapon in a fictional piece of entertainment, and they were flooded with death threats. Can you even internalize that data in any rational way?
It's ridiculous. It's borderline ridiculous. And what bothers me the most about it is how apologists immediately leap to defend this kind of behavior and say, oh, well, I mean, they aren't serious. The question is then, how are we to actually discern between what's a real serious threat and what's not?
I mean, even if we assume that nobody who writes death threats is actually going to act on them, and I mean, enough people have been killed over a lot less, so I'm not even going to say that's true, but let's just assume no one's going to act on any of these. The psychological toll of that constant bombardment has to be catastrophic. I mean, I get one negative comment on something I worked real hard on, and it ruins my whole day. Like, I worked for hours on that article, right? Phil Fish works for 5 years on a game, and he got thousands of hateful comments. Can you imagine? Just exponentially more depressing. I don't even know how he lasted this long. I probably would have rage quit the industry months ago.
I can't understand for the life of me how people feel as though, like, even if you're justifying it to yourself in your head that you're not being serious, why it's okay to send someone an email that says that you're going to gut their daughter in front of them because they changed the statistic on a weapon that doesn't exist. Like, what? How does that affect your life? Like, how does that? I just like I've never been able to see the video games industry as anything but entertainment. And don't get me wrong, it is honestly like video games are some of the best entertainment around. They are. Like, I love video games. I love them to death. I really do. But I don't get it. I can't understand why if someone adjusts the manner in which you are being entertained, why it's okay then to talk to that person as though, like, I can't even understand talking to somebody that way. I can't even understand saying to anybody doing anything in the world and being like, I'm gonna gut your daughter while you watch, and feel like a well-adjusted person afterwards. I can't do that. Like, I mean, some of the, like, the most violent people, the most psychopathic people in history, my default reaction is, wow, we need to take that person and put them away somewhere very far that they're not going to be able to get out of for a long, long time. Forever, if preferable. Like, that's my default position. I'm like, I don't want them here. I don't want them to get here. I don't want them to even have a remote chance of getting close to getting here. And then I will be okay.
I mean, if we just kind of assume that half of the equation, the people who are making the threats, that they're just not fixable, right? These people are always going to exist. Either they don't understand the consequences of the things they say, or they get off on it. They think it's funny to threaten people. I mean, what is it that we can do to adjust the culture to minimize that? Because it seems to me that's a losing battle. Those people are just always going to exist. Do we need to have some kind of structure for helping people like Phil Fish deal with it? Did we fail him in some way, or was he just? I mean, a lot of this seems like victim blaming. Like, he said he didn't like Japanese video games, so fuck him.
Yeah, but I mean, just because he doesn't like Japanese video games and he feels that the industry there has stagnated, again, I don't see why that means he deserves letters about popping his eyes out with plastic forks. Like, I can't, like, and this is the thing, I can't say that we failed him. I can't say that we did, because, I mean, Austin, you've played Fez, right?
I played a little bit of Fez. I didn't get a chance to get very far. It was a very arcane sort of game.
That's fine, all right. So you played Fez. I bought Fez. So as far as what I am capable of contributing to Phil Fish's faith in the industry, I have done. Like, I've done everything I can do. I bought his game, and there's no amount of positive reinforcement of saying, oh, hey, you made a great game, that can subtract from or overcome threats of castration. Like, I'm just throwing physical threats out there. I don't know if Phil Fish was actually threatened with being castrated or anything like that, but I can say, like, if I play Fez and I like it, I can say to Phil Fish or, whoever or whatever game, like Jasper Byrne, I've played Lone Survivor, I love it. So I can say to Jasper Byrne, hey, your game Lone Survivor is amazing. You're a great developer. Keep doing what you're doing. As a person of reason, though, I cannot say to Jasper Byrne, you are a good person. Your family is going to be okay. I will protect you. Because that is nearly as crazy as threatening the man's daughter because you decided to port your amazing game to the PS Vita because, why? You want to make a living and keep developing games. Like, there's nothing we can do. There's no form of, like, extreme ego bolstering that exists on the internet. We can't just make a giant friendship collage and send it to Phil Fish and hope that he still makes Fez 2. Like, what kind of support systems can we have? All I want to see is for people to behave more like humans. All I want to see is to people behave is to see people behave with a little bit more respect for one another on a day-to-day basis. And I realize that this sounds weird coming out of my mouth because, like, I make light of just about everything on the podcast. But when it comes down to the nitty-gritty, I cannot for the life of me, imagine crossing that line for something as trivial as a video game.
So there's basically nothing we can do then if people are going to be crazy no matter what, and there's no way to really reach out to developers. It's just kind of an unsolvable problem.
I think the best thing that we can do is just try and help the community stay grounded. And I mean, I realize that that's a bit ridiculous because it reeks a little bit of preaching to the choir because, when you're a reasonable person, you have a tendency to associate with other reasonable people. And you all kind of go like, oh, hey, wouldn't it be reasonable if we all treated everybody with a little bit of, like, human respect as if they deserved to be here and they had a chance to do something that they love to do? And then if we didn't like it, we could say we didn't like it, but then we could back it up with, good debate. We could have a discussion and then afterwards feel like we grew as people. But then there's the people who, are all, fuck you, no, fuck you. Well, fuck you and your mom. Well, fuck you and your mom and your dad. You'd fuck my dad? No, don't. No, I wouldn't fuck your dad. Dude, that's gay. No, you're gay. How can we get in touch with these people? I don't know.
I guess all you can really do is try to ignore those people. I don't really know if there's any reaching them. Just foster communities of positivity and intelligent debate.
That is, as far as I'm concerned, the best thing we can do. I mean, I'd like to be able to sit down with Phil Fish and be like, listen, maybe you mouthed off a bit, maybe you're a bit of a jerk. I don't care. I don't know you, but I feel really bad what happened to you. I want you to keep your chin up, man. Like, stay strong. Do what you love. Like, don't listen to the haters. But I can't. I don't know Phil Fish. I don't know Jasper Byrne. So all I can do is buy games and tell other people to buy games that are great and fucking respect one another, for shit's sake.
I guess in a small way that we can do our own part insofar as remind people not to be dicks.
It would be nice if that was a default position, to just not be a dick. Would be nice.
Some people start as dicks and some people don't, and they become dicks later. I'm not sure about the nature versus nurture dick process. Oh God, BT podcast territory.
Yeah, we'll step away from that subject subtly and maybe bring it up when we record the next BT podcast.
Sorry, Sean.
You don't have to apologize. He's not here.
Is there anything else you wanted to talk about on this subject before we wrap it up and leave it to everyone else?
I don't know. Like, I'd be curious. I'd be curious to know if there was anybody listening that's ever gone on the internet and overreacted. And I want to know thought processes. That's the thing, I mean, I play things and I get angry at what some developers say, and I sometimes feel a little. I care about video games. I do. I care about video games. I care about it being respected. I care about the art being elevated. I care about getting more great games. I care about good minds, creative minds in the industry being fostered and being encouraged. And and sometimes I get angry. Sometimes I get a little miffed. I get a little, we've mouthed off about David Cage on the podcast at great length about how his opinions of certain games are wrong, just like downright wrong. But it's never occurred to me to take it right to him because, love it or leave it, David Cage enriches the industry. He makes different things. He makes things that are distinct to him, unique to him. And I don't want to take that away. I'm not going to buy it. I won't pay him any money, but
we need the hypocritical trash as much as we need the blockbuster masterpieces.
Yeah.
It's called contrast. It makes art special.
It also gives us more opportunity to pick and choose what we like. It means that you can sit down and choose what you want to play. It means that you get options that you can choose to play like a free-to-play first-person shooter or a MOBA or a story-heavy third-person action adventure or an RTS or, like any first-person shooter or Japanese RPGs or sim games or, horror or whatever, like the more we push outliers away, the more we push people to hate the industry, the more we're homogenizing it. We're making less of a hobby we love because we're incapable of respecting the people that provide us, that make these things that we love. And if we can't give someone who's responsible for like a great part of my life, if we can't at least respect them for working hard and knowing what they know and being as creative as they can be, then we don't respect the medium at all.
It seems like if we end up with like a soulless, hateful, homogenized industry, we'll have no one but ourselves to blame. And as much as I disagree with a lot of things Phil Fish said, I think that gaming is poor for having lost him if he does in fact stay gone.
Yeah, I can agree with that completely, as well as agreeing that I don't agree with what, everything he says. But yeah, the industry in general is poorer for having lost him if he does. That sums it up pretty nicely, Austin.
On that note, I think we're going to leave it to you guys in the comments to let us know your opinion and your take on the situation, which certainly isn't the end of this conversation. Who knows? He might be back someday.
I hope so.
We'll keep you updated as it develops. But thanks for listening, and we'll see you in a couple days on the BT podcast, and then Sean should be back next week.
And don't worry, I'll get plenty ridiculous by then. Penis.
I'm going to end on penis.